Anthony Brindisi, Assemblyman, who is, of course, running for that seat. You want to comment on that one?
Well, I guess, there are going to be national articles that are going to talk about this race. People always ask me on the campaign trail, why don't you talk about the president more? Why don't you talk about the president more? And I always tell folks, as a representative, it's not my job to always oppose the president. Where I can find areas that I can work with him, I'm going to work with the president. Where there's areas that he's doing something I think are harmful to the district, I'm going to oppose the president no matter who it is. But overall, I think people in this district are not concerned about the national polls. They're not concerned about some of the rhetoric that's coming out. What they're concerned about are jobs. They're concerned about health care costs. They're concerned about their Social Security and Medicare. Those are the things that I hear about on the campaign trail, not investigations and things like that are happening nationally that are important to Washington folks.
I do want to ask you, though, you have to admit, you have now, for the first time since the Korean War, the North and South on the same turf. A possible end to the Korean War. It seems like denuclearization of the peninsula. It really looks like the president's tough talk is leading to progress right now. Do you think?
Yeah, I hope so, and I give the president credit here for this. To see the two leaders come together and cross over that line for the first time in decades is a great thing to see. We don't want to see a nuclear-armed North Korea because it's a threat to their neighbors, it's a threat to us, it's a threat to peace in the world. So I applaud him. I hope that the summit that they have, the president and the leader of North Korea have, goes well, and we can continue on a pathway where they are being brought into the world stage, not alienated from the world stage.
I will be shocked, though, if a deal is cut, because you remember what we're looking for. We aren't going to be denuclearizing anything, but South Korea would and North Korea would. There'd be 100% verification, which would mean before any funding, any release of any of the tariffs or any of the penalties, the financial penalties that have been imposed on North Korea, before any of that is gone, they have to prove to us that they have just completely gotten rid of their entire nuclear program. Boy, that's a tall order. I'm not sure we're ever going to see that.
It's a tall order, but we will see. But it's important that we have inspections that are taking place on a regular basis to show that they are doing that, and I hope that the president can achieve that. And look, I want him to succeed in this area because it's better for the world and better for the country if we can have a peace arrangement with North Korea.
Well, it is unprecedented, certainly at this point. The fact that everybody's talking is really big. Okay, so let me just, if I could, touch on last week's news, because I was away. And this Ray Jadwick and his ultimately, you're an attorney, he has every right to do it. It's parody, tasteless. We saw that at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. At the same time, you did come out last week and said, maybe we could be more constructive. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are you saying?
Well, the rhetoric that you saw in that particular post that was on Facebook is disgusting. It's okay to have disagreements over this project. That's fine. But what's not okay is the level of the rhetoric, which is being passed off as satire, which is really just despicable, and there's no place for it. And it leads to it's not constructive conversation. It leads to more bickering and more distrust. But what we need to have is an open dialogue and not be so disrespectful of each other.
Where do you have any clue out of the where is this? If this is all coming from Ray Jadwick and it's posted on the No Hospital Downtown Facebook page, clearly either they have no control over the page or they're allowing it. But where does the anti-gay implying that yourself, the county executive, people that are pro-hospital downtown are homophobic, that it would cost more to come to a Tony Presenti fundraiser if you're a gay couple, and if you're a biracial couple, you'd have no chance in even attending. Where are they getting this from? Where is it coming from? It seems like out of left field.
I don't really want to get in his head because I'm worried what's in there, but it's not helpful to the conversation really. And what we need to do is just have an open debate. It's okay to be opposed. It's okay to call out elected officials. We get criticism all the time. That's fine. But what's not okay is, this is one thing. This kind of behavior is one thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that is even less tolerable, in my opinion, is some of the death threats that you've seen on there, which really do lead to people who may go on that site, seeing things like that, and then taking matters into their own hands, which is what scares me the most.
Okay, the Congresswoman put out a video involving the New York SAFE Act that Manaski has a question about.
Yeah, I saw this video clip on social media this weekend. It's you. If you can give some context as to where you were, and then I want to ask you about the video clip that's out. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, it looks like you're in a classroom-type setting. The description on the video basically says you're talking to a number of Democrats and Pelosi types, but a student, I believe, asks you a question about why you voted against the New York SAFE Act, and in your answer, Tenney's camp is pointing to the fact that you immediately said, well, it came out quickly, I never had a chance to read it. Are you familiar with this discussion you might have had? There is a video clip that's out there of you talking about it. Do you want to, can you clarify your position on the SAFE Act?
Yeah, so I had a town hall meeting, and unlike the town halls that she does not have, my town halls are open to everybody who wants to come. There are no scripted questions or anything like that. So we've been holding a series of town hall meetings throughout the district. I had one in Hamilton, in Madison County a few weeks ago. I did one in Norwich last week, one in Binghamton last week. We're doing a couple more in Binghamton coming up, and then some up in Herkimer County. We're going to do the rest of the district as well over the next few months. So I don't know specifically which one she's talking about, but let me be very clear for the Congresswoman, because she'd like to use this issue to divide people.
By the way, I do find it interesting that she doesn't have town hall meetings, but she's willing to send people to videotape you at your town hall meetings. I kind of enjoy that a little bit.
Her trackers are at every meeting I have, so
yeah,
that's expected. But let me be very clear. I voted against the SAFE Act for a number of reasons. One, it was a bill that was brought to us with about 3 hours to read. Two, it's a bill where I wasn't even sure how it would impact a major manufacturer like Remington Arms in our district. Three, I thought it was an offense to law-abiding gun owners, even though there were things in the SAFE Act I could agree with. There were things in there that I thought were an overreach, and that's why I ultimately voted against it. She wants to try and say that I'm for banning semi-automatic rifles. I've said on this show before, I'm not in favor of that. But I do want to see some reforms like extending background checks so guns are not getting into the hands of people who are criminals or the violently mentally ill.
I think what she's trying to imply is, and I'd like your answer to this, is that depending on which crowd you're talking to, if you're going to talk to a Democrat, a liberal, what they're calling a Pelosi-type crowd that is for the SAFE Act, you're going to change your tune versus if you were talking to us. We're clearly pro Second Amendment. How do you respond to that?
It's not. Well, most of the Democrats don't like my answer when I tell them why I voted against the SAFE Act. So I'm not making any friends when I'm making these statements. I'm giving them the truth. I tell people, whether I'm in front of a room full of Democrats, Republicans, or anybody, I don't ask people questions of what their party affiliation is when they come into the room. My town halls are open to anyone. So I know that I'm talking to a mixed crowd of people, and some may agree with my position, some may not agree with my position, but my position's always been clear why I voted against the SAFE Act, why I've continued to support the Second Amendment and people's right to bear arms, because I do believe in it. And I also believe that you can be a supporter of the Second Amendment and you can be for something like expanding background checks. Most of the gun violence that's committed in New York State is done by firearms that are purchased in states like Virginia that have lax background check laws and then smuggled into New York State and sold illegally. So there's no reason why in some states you can purchase a firearm with no background check or very little background check to be able to get a firearm. So I'm not for banning AR-15s. I'm not for banning semi-automatic rifles. I've been very clear in that since the day I was elected.
And your rating with the NRA, certainly that organization supports what you're saying here right now based on your rating.
And just
I had a higher rating than she does.
just a follow-up on the video. I believe it says in there, I believe you stated you are for banning or restricting high-capacity magazines.
Yes, that's true. I don't think that we should have high-capacity magazines.
All right, and one more follow-up. If the SAFE Act, if what you know about it...
And what is a high-capacity, what number do you feel?
Well, I'll leave it to the experts to determine number, but I'm thinking 50 or something like that. That seems to be a little excessive, but many states have gone in that direction, so you can't commit the mass kind of carnage that you're seeing when you have some of these mass shootings.
And in New York State, I believe it's what? It's 10?
10.
10, yeah. Okay.
And then,
are you okay with 10?
I'm okay with 10.
Okay.
if the SAFE Act were proposed today, and you know what you know, would you have voted for or against it? You had time to read it. You've actually seen what the impacts are of it, 2 years down the road. If it were proposed today, how would you vote on it?
Same bill?
Same bill, exactly the same.
No, I would still vote the same way I voted the first time, because there are things in there, and there are bills that I've been working on with Senator Seward to repeal certain parts of the SAFE Act that we felt were a little too burdensome for law-abiding gun owners. I think there were things in there that are good, but there's things in there that certainly I thought were an overreach.
Do you think there's already in New York City they have different laws than upstate when it comes to guns? Certainly we saw it happen with the minimum wage, where it ramps up quicker in the city than it does here. Would you support, I think it was Mark Butler and a couple of others had a bill out there that would address the SAFE Act differently upstate than it did downstate?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, because there are there's just different lifestyles. In a major metropolitan area, you may want to have stricter laws because you have more people in a condensed area. Here, I feel like sometimes people in the city or other parts of the country just don't understand how we live up here. People own firearms for hunting purposes. They like to own them for recreational purposes. They own them because they want to feel safe in their home. I respect that. There's a lack of respect for that among many people in this country, and I find that offensive. But it is what it is, and I think we can have some common sense reforms to help cut down on some of the mass shootings that we're seeing, while also still respecting the Second Amendment. The Congressman doesn't feel that way.
You're seeing rates increasing in a creeping fashion, I should say. Although there's some creep there making the rates go up for cable TV, I'm sure. Give us in a nutshell. I know we were going to talk more about this than we have. You feel that the rates are quietly going up? Quietly.
They're not quietly going up. They're going up pretty harshly.
Yeah.
I see most folks in this area who have Spectrum cable have seen their bills go up 20, 30, in some cases 40 or 50%, which is ridiculous. This is a larger problem across our country, but you have Charter Communications, which bought Time Warner to form Spectrum Communications, which is the only cable provider that we have in this area. And compared from last year to this year, I have examples of bills going up 40%. That's outrageous. And you really don't have any competition among cable providers to try and encourage lower prices. The government allows these monopolies to go through, and this is something that I think we have to really scrutinize more. Spectrum and Charter are making record profits right now. They're the beneficiaries of this tax bill and still raising prices 40% on consumers. They're not following through on some of the commitments they made when they merged together to expand service into underserved areas and bring broadband to more rural communities, and they're allowed to charge these exorbitant rates. So something has to be done about it, and that's why I'm asking the Public Service Commission here in New York and the Federal Trade Commission in Washington to look into these price increases.
Have you gotten any reaction from Spectrum, any reaction from anyone on this?
Well, I'm sure they're not happy with me, but that's the thing about me. Spectrum is also a news organization that covers me, but I'm not afraid to take on a big corporation that's going to provide news coverage of me as well, and call them out when they're charging consumers these high prices for their cable bills. That's just something I'm always going to do. And
there are places. My parents. It's not like they live in the middle of nowhere. My parents don't have access to cable or high-speed internet.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
there are areas right outside of Utica where people don't have any broadband, and it's because companies like Spectrum or Verizon or others have chosen not to expand broadband into those areas. Yeah. Despite the fact that they're supposed to. When Spectrum merged, they made agreements that they had to provide more service in some of those areas.
Just quickly, they were told. My parents have always been told, if you can get everybody else on your road to sign up, we'll do it. Well, that's not expanding. It's crazy. Anyway, out of time. Anthony Brindisi, as always. We talk about different things than planned. I appreciate that. We'll talk again soon.
Sure, anytime.
Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi.